Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, May 30th, 2025. We have a ton of stuff coming up for you in this week's show, including some, direct commentary about how one local funeral director feels about the corporate competition in his own town, and some futurist type stuff. There are a couple of stories that kind of asked us to cast our minds into the future, and I might start doing a regular feature of all of these different, funeral of the future kind of stories that they seem to be cropping up more and more. There is another divide about aquamation, or water cremation, I guess, in Vermont, and an interesting conversation on Reddit. Plenty more where that came from. So stay with us.
For more than 20 years, Matthews Aurora Funeral Solutions has been providing innovative technology to support funeral professionals and their families. Their Arranger presentation system makes showcasing service and merchandise options simple. Family Connections technology enables families to participate in arrangement planning from the comfort of home. And the Advisor system combines case management and interactive planning, all in one place. Simplify the arrangement process with technology designed for you. Visit MatthewsAurora.com for a free demo or call 1-800-457-111 today. That's MatthewsAurora.com or 1-800-457-1111. Call today.
And first up, I want to talk about some of the things that are going on at Kates-Boylston and at Kates-Boylston.com. There's a link to all of these in the show notes. We have a webinar coming up in a couple weeks on June 25th. We will have How to DIY Your Marketing with some folks from At Need, Michael Anderson and Jansen Lindsay. We'll have some more information coming out about it. I mean, of course, you can find the details in events.katesboylston.com, or just go to katesboylston.com/webinars and you'll be able to find out the basics and to register to be reminded. But I'm going to talk to both gentlemen and see kind of what their thinking is for this webinar, and I'll run a little feature so you guys can be hopefully better prepared for it. In other news, we have Funeral Insider, this issue coming out. We'll have some fun stories. I spoke with a guy named Colin Maxon about his... I hate, all of my stories say so-and-so's journey to becoming a funeral director. And I guess I've got to break out the old thesaurus. But for right now, we'll say his journey to becoming a funeral director. He's a first-generation guy, and it's a really cool story. And he was a pleasure to talk to. I talked to him a while ago, and it's just been so busy that we weren't able to get this story up and running. But that is in the coming issue of Funeral Service Insider, along with a story that I wrote based on a conversation I had with Tom Nondorf, the editor of American Cemetery and Cremation, about their June edition. Now, if you are getting this the second it comes out, then it is June 30th, then it is May 30th. But June 1st is just around the corner. And if you are a subscriber to Funeral Service Insider, there are a couple stories that I'd like to recommend you take a look at on American Cemetery in June. Of course, if you are not subscribed to American Cemetery, you can subscribe online, and then you'll have access to all these cool stories. And we also have a bunch of great stuff in American Funeral Director for June. So both of those magazines are coming out. You can subscribe to all of our publications at katesboylston.com, and there's a link to subscribe in the show notes, as well as to katesboylston.com in case you just want to poke around. Along those lines, every week I do this in case you missed it. A lot of the things I leave out are the press releases that we get from companies. I leave it out for a couple of different reasons. Mostly, I feel like they're pretty well. I feel like if you have an email address, then you're getting the press releases. And if they're anything interesting, I'm always happy to do a feature on them. But just saying that this press release came out, we don't really have the time or space for that. But I can recommend that if you don't know what new products are coming out, or what new companies are making new products, or who's getting promoted, that kind of thing, you can visit the industry news section of Kates-Boylston.com, and we'll have all that. So now that's all my house cleaning type stuff, and let's get into it. I don't spend a ton of time on Reddit, but I am a member of the r/Ask Funeral Directors Reddit page, so I get notifications, and oftentimes they're talking about things kind of it's either funeral directors talking to other funeral directors or people asking funeral directors questions. And I haven't pulled very much from it, only because there hasn't been much there for me to share with you. But this was an interesting post that I wanted. There's a link to it in the show notes if you're on Reddit. But this is more something worth thinking about and that I wanted to share. So, question for funeral directors: what do you wish your software actually did? That was the post, and the answers are pretty cool. They're like, many of them just shouted out the software that they're currently using and said they're perfectly happy with it, or as happy with it as they expect to be. But several said, we don't need another new solution. And tech is coming. I mean, we've talked about it 1,000 times before, but tech is really coming for the funeral industry. I guess somebody said, hey, the funeral industry doesn't have enough tech solutions, and so now everyone with a keyboard is writing a new app or a new solution and asking funeral directors what they want in an app. It's very cool, I guess, from the developer's point of view, but mostly what they want is the apps that they have to work a little bit better than they do, or a little bit differently than the way they do. So if you are a funeral director and you are less than happy with the way your software is going, call your software company. Like, they do a lot of fixes by request. I think many, if not most people, know that. I know that pretty much every tech company that I've done an interview with has a plan for addressing funeral directors' issues. And I mean, I know that we've done a bunch of features on ASD, for example, and they have lots of, their whole thing is they go to the funeral directors are like, well, this doesn't work. And they're like, okay, well, let's make it work. And they're not the only ones. That's the example that springs right to mind because it was such a recent one. I'm working on an ASD story that'll be out in a couple of weeks, so I have them in my head. But talk to your service providers if you're not getting what you want. I'll be interested to see if this person, I don't know what kind of person it is, but I'd be interested to see if they got enough feedback to build a solution. I don't know how many more solutions funeral service needs. I think that we're going to start to see a lot more consolidation, a lot more of these companies buying other companies and, getting sucked up into the new. So link to it in the show notes if you want to go ahead and tell them what you would like to see or see some of the answers. That is where you can do it. I wanted to start this off by saying like shots fired or something like that, because this is a story about the retreat, I guess, of family-owned funeral homes, or the reduction in, I guess, family-owned funeral homes around the industry from the Cap Times out of Madison, Wisconsin. And they went to a gentleman named Matt Gunderson, and he is a fourth-generation funeral home owner and operator. And he was more than frank about his neighbors from Park Lawn, who he said he gets all of his employees from because they are not happy there. It was a really kind of a direct, there's a link in the show notes. It's a free behind the paywall story. And it was something to read. It's not often that people are frank in the newspaper. And they did, they spoke with Park Lawn, and Park Lawn sent a release that said, we love our customers. We treat our employees well. Whatever. So if you'd like to read the statement from Park Lawn, you can find it in the Cap Times. But I just, kudos to Mr. Gunderson, because a lot of times people try to hedge, and a lot of times people are very forthcoming about how much they love, dealing with corporately owned funeral homes. several owners that I've spoken with, several owners that I've done stories for, I speak very highly of the deals that they were able to make with some of the bigger corporate funeral homes. So that's the other thing that I thought was weird, that he just came out guns blazing, and I wanted to share it with you because I felt like if he wanted you to know it, then I want you to know it too. So there's a link to that in the show notes. I shared a story this week that generated a little bit of, not controversy, but at least conversation about a death doula boutique that has opened. And what I thought, there were two things that I thought was interesting. One I thought was just kind of funny, and the other one I thought was worth discussing. And of course, the thing that I thought that was, odd was the thing that caught people's imagination, which the death doula's name is Caprice Jones, and she used to be a CNA working in hospice, and then she developed this doula business where she does end-of-life care for all sorts of people. And now, more recently, she's opened up a shop where it's like a storefront from which she runs her doula business, and it has a bunch of things that people who aren't dying might need. Some different skincare products, adult diapers are one of the things that they offer. So it's kind of a end-of-life store that's not a funeral home, but it does make you wonder, how far away that kind of melding could possibly be. I mean, we've done features. Just last week we spoke with Alexandra Mosca, and she's worked for years out of a different funeral home. She doesn't have her own building, but she has her own funeral business. And I've done some features in the past of people who have like these collectives of funeral directors. But this notion of a death doula that has a death doula store it just captured my imagination, and it's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about because that is how quickly death is changing. We did a story not too long ago. I love to talk about it, about a company that actually has a separate office in town where they just do end-of-life celebration bookings. It's not even in the funeral home. It's not near the funeral home. There are no funeral directors who work there. They may be funeral directors, but they don't have to be funeral directors to work there because they're party planners, and they get out in the community and they make deals with local restaurants and the local casino and things like that. I'll put a link to that story in the show notes too. I've talked about it 1,000 times though. The other thing though that I got a kick out of, really, and it was just a kick out of it, is that, she said that she sings Christian hymns to everybody, kind of like whether you like it or not. And, I thought that was a weird thing to put in a newspaper story about your new business. Like, if you don't want Christian hymns sung, then too bad, I'm singing them anyway, And so there was some discussion on social media about that. But, I mean, practically speaking, if you read the article and you know that she'll be singing, Amazing Grace, and that's the last song, if you're comfortable with hearing that as your last song, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, and I don't think that she's been, aggressive at anyone. It's just a weird thing to say. It's a weird place to say we accept everybody that doesn't mind listening to hymns in their final hours. So anyway, link to the story in the show notes. I've got some more death doula stuff that I'm working on that I want to talk about in the future too. Look for stuff like that in, I think, July. I'll have a feature ready about that, and I think it'll be a fun feature. So, link in the show notes. I didn't say shots fired before, so I can't say more shots fired now. But if I can, I would, because this is kind of a fun story from Vermont, out of Milton, Vermont, and it's about the Vermont's first water cremation machine, and it is at the Minor Funeral Home, under the direction of Jonathan DePonte, who is the funeral director there. And he talked about, he wants to be the forerunner of this, innovation, and he thinks that this is kind of where the future is. And I think one of the shots fired things he said is that in 50 years, this will be the only way that people will be able to have their final disposition. And so they went to the other funeral home in town and said, hey, what do you think of this whole water cremation thing? And one of the competitors, Lee Webster of Vermont Funeral, he said, let's see what happens. We'll wait and we'll see if the technology improves. And if it does, then we'll figure out where it fits in the spectrum. And I think that is a really good example of how many people see water cremation. It's this idea of we're going to go all in on it, or we're going to wait and see what happens. But practically speaking, the people who are having the most success that I've spoken with, and I've spoken with quite a few, have it as a tool. It's a tool in the tool belt. The most successful people that I've spoken with have it, and just whatever the family, have it as part of whatever the family wants. They'll ship you to be terramated if there's no terramation facility in your state. They'll aquamation you. They'll water cremate you. They will, bury you like a regular person, send you through the crematory. That is, that's I'm not telling anybody a secret. That's the best way to approach funeral business. Now, of course, if you have a water cremation machine, it's absolutely something that you should tout because it does capture people's imagination. But so does green burial, which everybody, kind of has. So there's a link to the story in the show notes. I just really wanted to say shots fired again more than anything else. I'm not going to talk too much about this story, but I would love it if you checked it out in the show notes, only because it's a great read. It is like a consumer excerpt of an academic paper by a gentleman named Dr. Dominic Trimbley of the University of Melbourne, Australia. And he talks about the city planning aspect of cemeteries. And he's kind of this, futurist. As I mentioned at the beginning, I might start doing like a monthly or quarterly, futurist show or futurist issue maybe, because I see a lot of these stories and they're really just speculative, but it's also so much fun to talk about. So he bought a cemetery that was full and he put a water cremation vessel there, and now it's been reimagined as this place where people go. It's a cemetery that does water cremation, and he uses the effluent as part of the experience. And there's a lot of the stuff that's, kind of really, it seems really out there now, but it doesn't seem far-fetched. Does that make sense? I don't think that makes sense. What I'm trying to get at is he wants to build a world where the dirt is from terramated bodies, and there are, different water features that have in part some alkaline hydrolysis remains, I guess, running through them. That's an odd way to think about it. So I would really rather you read it than to continue to butcher his vision, because he has kind of an expansive vision for the cemetery of the future, and it's exciting to read. If nothing else, it's exciting to read. It's exciting to think of just turning it completely on its head and using filled cemeteries to celebrate, lives in different ways. So that's really, I think, the take home. What do you do with a filled cemetery? Well, you can put an aquamation machine in it, and all of a sudden you've got all the space in the world. So link to that in the show notes. And that will do it for this time. In case you missed it, is a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all of your feedback. And if you'd like to continue to send it, if you want to leave a message, you can leave me a telephone message at 732-746-0233, extension 709. That is 732-746-0233, extension 709. Lots of people leave me messages and say, I just want to tell you this, don't repeat it, and I don't repeat it. But if you'd like me to use your voice in the podcast, just say so on the message and I'll be happy to. And of course, you can always reach me via email. Go to the show notes, follow the link to the main story on Kates-Boylston.com, and under every story that I write, there's a place where you can email me, and I'm always happy to get emails and to return them if necessary. But that will do it for this week, and we will see you next time.